Have you ever pondered over the conditions that could lead to job termination as per Kenya's labor laws? Such a question might be slightly discomforting, but it's a normal facet of the environment. It's vitally important to comprehend this, whether you're an employee, a supervisor, or a human resources expert. According to Kenya's labor laws, termination, in essence, signifies the conclusion of a contractual agreement with an organization. This can transpire for a variety of reasons, each accompanied by its unique set of circumstances and protocols. These reasons, otherwise known as grounds, can generally be divided into misconduct, incapability, and redundancy. Misconduct pertains to scenarios where an employee violates company rules or behaves inappropriately. Incapability, in contrast, is related to an employee's failure to fulfill job expectations or targets. Lastly, redundancy, under Kenya's labor laws, is a slightly more intricate ground, generally stemming from structural transitions or economic shifts within a company that render certain roles redundant. Now, let's delve deeper into these grounds for termination according to Kenya's labor laws. So, what exactly constitutes misconduct under Kenya's labor laws? This is a common query that emerges when discussing matters of employment and termination. According to the Kenyan context, misconduct is defined as an employee's behavior that violates the rules and regulations set out by the employer or the company they work for. The gravity of these breaches can vary from minor infractions to serious offenses. For example, theft from the workplace is an explicit instance of grave misconduct. It directly breaches the values of trust and which are fundamental to any professional relationship. Harassment, another form of serious misconduct, can manifest in various ways: verbal, physical, or even digital. Irrespective of its form, harassment fosters a hostile work atmosphere and is a major violation of respect and dignity. Just like theft, harassment is a grave form of misconduct that can warrant termination. Violations of company policy also fall under misconduct. These may not be as obvious as theft or harassment, but hold equal importance. An employee might continuously arrive late, neglect their responsibilities, or misuse company resources. While these behaviors might seem trivial, they can significantly affect the company's operations and work environment. However, it's crucial to note that under Kenyan labor laws, misconduct should not automatically lead to termination. Employers should ensure a just process when addressing allegations of misconduct. This involves conducting a comprehensive investigation, allowing the accused to present their defense, and considering all pertinent factors before making a decision. This fair process is vital, as it not only safeguards the accused from unfair termination, but also protects the employer from potential legal conflicts. It's about doing what's right for the employee and what's best for the business. In conclusion, misconduct, under Kenya's labor laws, is a serious issue that can result in termination. However, it's not about hastily jumping to conclusions. It's about comprehending the misconduct, scrutinizing the allegations, and ensuring a fair process. Misconduct, if proven, can certainly lead to termination, but what about performance issues? Could poor performance truly cost you your job? The answer is, indeed it can, especially under Kenya's labor laws. Performance issues can be a legitimate reason for termination, but it's not as straightforward as it initially seems. Let's delve a little deeper into this. It's crucial to understand that we're not talking about a solitary error or an off day. We're talking about systematic underperformance over an extended period. Even the brightest minds have bad days or even weeks. But when underperformance becomes a pattern rather than an anomaly, it can regrettably lead to termination. However, there's a caveat. Before proceeding to termination, employers should first try to rectify the situation in line with Kenya's labor laws. This might include coaching, training, or additional support to help the employee improve. This is not just ethical, it's a requirement. Employees should be given every chance to correct their performance flaws. You might question why an employer would undertake all this effort instead of merely replacing the underperforming worker. Well, it's not just about fairness. It's also about legal protection under Kenya's labor laws. If an employee is terminated without proper procedures being followed to address the performance issues, it can potentially lead to legal entanglements. This brings us to the importance of explicit communication and documentation. When managing performance issues, It's crucial that feedback is explicit, constructive, and prompt. Employees should be aware of their shortcomings and what they need to do to get better. Similarly, documentation is essential. Every step taken to manage the performance issues should be well documented. This includes the feedback given, the support offered, and the progress or lack thereof. This can serve as a vital evidence trail if the situation ultimately ends in termination. So, in conclusion, under Kenya's labor laws, yes, poor performance can lead to termination, but it's not a process that transpires quickly. It involves careful management, clear communication, ample support, and meticulous documentation. So we've discussed misconduct and performance issues, but what about redundancy? Have you ever come across the term redundancy? As per Kenya's labor laws, it is one of the grounds on which an employee can be terminated. Redundancy is a situation where an employee is dismissed from their job due to a need to decrease the workforce, not because of the employee's performance or conduct. It's a predicament triggered by various changes in the business that require a reduction in staff. Several factors can provoke redundancy. For example, if a Kenyan company decides to scale down due to unfavorable economic conditions, certain roles may be deemed redundant. Another typical instance is when new technologies or automation take over tasks that were previously performed human workers. In this case, the company might need to declare some positions redundant. A corporate merger or acquisition can also lead to redundancy. Overlapping roles in both companies are often declared redundant after a merger, as the new entity may not need two people for the same job. Nevertheless, it's crucial that redundancy, as a ground for termination, is executed fairly and in accordance with Kenya's labor laws. Employers must follow a transparent process, identifying which are redundant based on business needs, not personal traits. The process should involve a dialogue with the employees who are likely to be affected, discussing why their role is seen as and exploring alternatives, such as internal redeployment. In Kenya, employees declared redundant are entitled to redundancy pay, typically calculated based on their years of service, age, and salary. This compensation is meant to support them while they seek new employment opportunities. Redundancy can be a difficult situation, indeed, causing stress and uncertainty to the affected employees. However, remember, it does not reflect an individual's worth or capability. Influenced by various factors, it is a business decision, and there are regulations in place to ensure it is handled. Approaching redundancy with understanding, fairness, and transparency is key. Redundancy can be a stressful circumstance, but in Kenya there are clear laws and procedures to manage it. So, how should businesses in Kenya handle redundancy? Redundancy, while occasionally unavoidable, can be a complex process to navigate under Kenyan labor laws. It's a circumstance that demands sensitivity, fairness, and absolute transparency. So let's delve into the steps to handle redundancy appropriately as per Kenyan labor laws. First off, consultation. Kenyan law requires employers to involve employees in the decision-making process. Initiate a dialogue, explain the reasons for the potential redundancy, and listen to their perspectives and concerns. This is not just a mere requirement, but an opportunity to examine alternatives and potentially prevent redundancies. Next, it's essential to contemplate alternatives to redundancy. Could job sharing be an option? Maybe retraining or redeployment within the organization? Or possibly cutting down on overtime? Every possible option is worth considering according to Kenyan labor laws. Remember, redundancy should be your last resort. Then comes the selection process. If redundancies are unavoidable, the law requires employers to be impartial and fair in deciding who to lay off. Factors such as length of service, skills, qualifications, and performance can be taken into account. And remember, it's illegal to select employees for redundancy based on protected characteristics such as age, gender, or race, Kenya's Equal Opportunities Act. Now let's move on to redundancy compensation. Under Kenyan labor laws, employees who have served the company for at least 2 years are usually entitled to statutory redundancy pay. This is based on their age, weekly pay, and length of service. However, consider exceeding the bare minimum. A generous redundancy package can help cushion the impact and demonstrate to your workforce that their contribution is valued. Lastly, provide support during this difficult transition. This could include outplacement services, career advice, or even emotional support. Remember, how your organization treats departing employees reflects on your company's wages. Managing redundancy correctly under Kenyan labor laws can turn a challenging situation into a manageable one. It's not just about abiding by the law. It's about protecting the company's reputation, maintaining employee morale, and building a more resilient future. So, in summary, what are the major takeaways regarding termination and redundancy as per Kenya's labor laws? First off, termination can be a result of misconduct or performance issues. Misconduct means actions that blatantly disregard company rules, while performance issues indicate an employee's failure to satisfy their job's requirements. However, termination must be in line with the Employment Act of Kenya, which ensures fair treatment of employees. On the flip side, redundancy in Kenya is more intricate. Redundancy, under Kenyan law, occurs when an employee's role becomes unnecessary, commonly due to operational changes, technological upgrades, or economic downturns. The law requires employers to declare a position redundant and follow due procedures, including proper consultation with the worker. It is worth noting that redundancy is not a reflection of an employee's conduct or performance. When it comes to handling redundancy, employers should follow the Kenya Employment Act, which mandates a detailed process, including discussions with affected employees regarding alternatives to redundancy. In cases where redundancy is inevitable, the Act ensures that a reasonable severance package is granted. In conclusion, termination and redundancy are ordinary occurrences in the Kenyan business environment, but they are governed by respective laws to ensure fairness.